We thank the Lord for another wonderful day of life. Today we will start our study, and today's study is entitled God's Timeout. How do you get the attention of the disobedient? That, in effect, is the question. There has to be a way, and God has a way of being able to do so. Before we get into the study, let's talk about for a moment. When you hear the word timeout, what comes to mind? What comes to mind when you hear the word timeout?
First of all, giving the children time out to do anything but just
children's time out. Punishment. And normally timeouts are associated with the intent of doing, well, what is the goal of the timeout, typically?
I was about to say to refocus.
To refocus. So the timeout is not really to, as it even might suggest, is not really to stop a person's involvement completely, but refocus is a good word. The intent is to bring some kind of visibility, shine some kind of light on something that's impeding progress. And so with the intention of not stopping the person or the thing completely, a timeout then is used with the intention of redirecting or giving a person an opportunity to redirect their energies, to consider, to pause for a moment to consider. So the intent of the timeout with children is in the way that it's used, it's not intended to say, you need to be out of my class, because putting them out of the class stops the learning process completely. And that's not what the intention is. The intention is to bring attention to something that's not pleasing and give the person a moment or time to consider or to stop a behavior that is considered to be improper, with the goal of redirecting it so that that person has an opportunity to get back on the right path. Sometimes people can go too far, kids can go too far, and they're not able to get back on the right path and come out of the timeout, and they end up having to leave the learning environment and go to the principal's office or something of that nature. But the point being is timeouts are used as a way of addressing or getting attention, drawing attention to a disobedient act. God also uses timeouts as well. To ground us in our study, we have one Bible spelling word. And that Bible spelling word is disobedient. Disobedience is defined by Webster as meaning refusal or neglect to obey. Our second definition for the word disobedience is refusal or failure to obey rules, laws, etc. A couple of words that I'm going to give you for our next two definitions for disobedience are words that you are familiar with. The third definition for disobedience is the word known as defiance. Defiance. And the last definition for disobedience, the last word, is rebellion. Rebellion. When you look at these definitions talk about behavior and they talk about the purpose of behavior, whether it is refusal or whether it is neglect or whether it is failure. In all cases, it is a form of defiance or rebellion. And so as such, during those times, it is important to recognize, just like mankind has means to be able to address such things as timeouts, God too has measures to address disobedience as well. One measure that mankind uses to address disobedience beyond school is what? What kind of timeout that man uses? When we look at what timeout is, based off of what we talked about what timeout is intended to do, there's another level of timeout that mankind uses in society. Prison. Jail. Exactly. It is a timeout. Timeout of what? Society. And it's timeout of society because of something that the person or persons did prior to that moment, that time, where they either refused to obey rules and laws or they neglected to obey rules and laws or they failed to obey rules and laws. In any case, when that happens on a society level, mankind uses the system known as prison or jail at the city level and prison at the state and federal level to address disobedience. But in effect, it's a timeout. And depending on how severe the rebellion is, depending on what the situation was, that determines how severe the disobedience or the timeout is. Because there, in addition to the prison system, that being a timeout, there is also another way that mankind addresses disobedience even beyond the prison system. What is that?
I know one in the workforce is suspension without pay.
Well, that is true. In the workforce, being suspended without pay. That's a timeout. That's short of being unemployed. And so this other means that mankind has from a society perspective is executions. For all with the intention of giving the person a timeout. In that particular case, that's the extreme. In that particular case, they're talking about giving them a timeout permanently. Timeout of life. But as I mentioned, God has a way of doing the same thing, providing timeouts for his people because of trying to get them in a place where they are better. And so in order to do that, God gives his people a chance to change for the better. Because that's what God's desire is for his people to change for the better. But in order for them to get that opportunity, they have to recognize that the refusal or the neglect or the failure to obey rules and laws is not proper. Sometimes it is necessary then for there to be a timeout in order to get the attention and draw the attention to the disobedient acts. Our Bible memory verse speaks to this, and it can be found in 2 Chronicles the 7th chapter, and it starts at verse 14. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Now my eyes shall be open and my ears attent unto the prayer that is made in this place. Our Bible memory verse comes out of the book of 2 Chronicles, the 7th chapter, verse 14 and 15. And here, the Bible declares unto us a message that God was giving to the children of Israel. And the Lord was speaking with Solomon and responding to Solomon in his prayer. And the Lord was showing his grace and mercy on the children of Israel. And he told Solomon that if the people would humble themselves, if the people would then acknowledge him, he said, then he would acknowledge them. He would acknowledge them in a way that suggests that he forgives them for the wrong that they were doing. So this is about a recognition of some disobedient behavior. It's about a recognition on behalf of the children of Israel to recognize the behavior that was not pleasing in God's sight, thus causing them to be on the wrong side of God. This is God's way of saying to the children of Israel, I'm bringing attention to the behavior, your refusal, your neglect, your failure, your defiance, your rebellion. You might not see it, but God is saying, I see it. And he's saying that if you would stop, if you would humble yourself, if you would talk to me in prayer, spend time before me in sincerity, and stop doing what the Bible calls, what the Lord calls wicked ways. Wicked ways. Wicked ways are disobedient actions. And so this is God's way of giving his people a chance to change, an opportunity to change for the better. That's what God is doing here. That's what he's offering to his children.
Oh, praise be to God, from whom all blessings flow. It is our prayer at Clay Family Ministries that your life has been increased with the increase of God through this study. We appreciate and are thankful for your fellowship during this life skills study segment.